have a follow-up. I had made an announcement about a student competition that we were putting together for our third-year students. It was a site and landscape studio. I think we made that announcement in the February meeting. And tonight we are presenting the results of this competition. All of you should have a copy of, I brought the competition brief if you want to read through the actual assignment that the students were charged with. You'll notice that there's an overview that introduces the project. There's a little bit of history about the GASI, mentions the gasometer that was there at one time. The foundation is actually still to be seen. Maybe lower some lights and switches are so we can see.
That's good.
So the competition brief also mentions some of the parameters and the requirements that the students were charged with. The students were limited, as you can see, with the boards around the room. They were limited to two 30 by 40 inch boards. So that certainly limits the amount of information that they are able to put on the board. So therefore they have to be very precise and strategic with how they communicate their intention. So you'll notice in the brief that there are certain programmatic requirements like public bathrooms, notions of accessibility to be addressed. The core program of the competition was to provide some performance spaces in specifically the site of the flights and to address the existing playground. So I wanted to just walk you through a few slides here for those of you who may not be, oh maybe, I don't know if someone could click through for me. Thank you so much, Matt. To sort of cite you. I also wanted to mention that we did have an invited jury for this competition. We had a member from the Boston Parks Department join us. We also had an outside architect join us, as well as in-house architects from the Wentworth faculty. There was also, and there were awards, first place, second place, and third place with that jury. We also had what we call a People's Choice Award, which is where the students vote for the various boards as well. And so you'll see work from both of those juries, if you will, as well as some faculty choices in addition to those awards. So just to cite us, here we have the North End. We can go next. We have DeFilippo Park, including the GASI and the flights here to the north. This is Cobbs Hill up here. Zooming in a little bit more, we've got the flights area, which is the area concerned with the competition. Here we are looking from Prince Street up towards Cobbs Hill, looking at the three terraces of the flights. And this is the opposite direction, looking from Cobbs Hill down towards Prince Street at the site. Just to make that really clear, I know everyone is probably really familiar with the flights, but just in case. This is an AutoCAD drawing that we got from the Parks Department, which was really helpful. It's a little difficult to read here, but you can actually, there's evidence in this drawing of the foundation of that gasometer, that gas tank, that used to exist on this site. And that foundation is still there underneath the playing courts. So it was something really interesting. And then we've just got a few images here just to sort of trigger your memories about the flights these were taking in the wintertime. Here we've got the playground, the flights themselves, the retaining walls, the wall where the summer movies are projected and some music entertainment happens in the summertime. The students gathering information, their site analysis, procedures, looking down at the playground. And here we have the first project of the night. So tonight we have 5 projects that will actually be presented. In the room there are 8 projects that you can see, and I've brought with me, and if anyone needs some of these images, these handouts, there are 8 projects included here in these packs here. Students worked in teams of 2, and they were given approximately a week and a half with this project. So the work that you see here, they worked pretty autonomously because it is a competition. So they did a tremendous job. I'd like to introduce the first team, Holly Hersey and Rima Albu-Salman. So welcome our students.
I'm Rima.
And I'm Holly.
And our project is titled Green in Between. And the focus of our design was directly related to the residential neighborhood that is adjacent to the park, right across Snow Hill Street. And what we noticed was the lack of green space in the North End community as a whole, which you can see in this diagram. The taupe colors obviously represent the built forms in the neighborhood, and then the green is the green space that's available. And in this whole neighborhood, you can see that there's only like this green space, which is that burial ground, so not really very child-friendly. So we wanted to create a space that children could go play in, that was safe, and gave them the ability to run around, which you like to do when you're a kid. So our approach to the project was to just wipe out all the flights and make it predominantly this landscaped feature. And we thought, even though the flights is currently a park that kids can play in, it's mostly hardscape, and it doesn't really give them that creative freedom that kids like to have to run around and play, which you need in a city like this where there's not that available to you. So we wiped out all the flights, but we kept that buttress wall that you saw in the images that Elizabeth showed earlier, and right there on the right. So it acted as a boundary for the green space. You have the stone buttresses on one side and that concrete wall that comes from the parking garage, and the greenscape is just kind of hidden away in between these two.
So as we were working on the project, we found a really beautiful quote by John Dixon Hunt that spoke of gardens, and I thought it might be nice to read that to show where some of our inspiration came from. So we have gardens are territories of play, both play as alternative to work or business, and play as theater, make-believe, the whole gamut of role-playing that is human life. Though this last is not obviously confined to gardens, it flourished there because gardens are special sites of artifice pretended to be nature. Though if you were convinced a garden was wholly natural, you were tempted to think you could dispense with role-playing. Gardens have been the locations for solitary meditation, which may run the gamut from reading books to dreaming and to fantasizing. They have also been especially apt for lovemaking, where the intensity of passion or seduction is mirrored in the garden's concentrated reorganization and embellishment of nature. Equally, they may serve as locations for group activity, where some specific interests, be it close family, gender solidarity, or some clubbishness, can feel confident that it is paramount and cherished. These moments of community may be symbolized in feastings or listening to the harmony of music or assisting at some other entertainment, all activities which, like gardens, meld art and nature. And although we didn't create a typical garden with flowers and trees and water features, we did create a space that is vastly landscaped, and it really opens up the space and acts as a garden and allows for the activities that were described in that quote. So the program that requires a built form, such as the restrooms, we place against the existing garage to really open up the rest of the space. So we have the public restrooms at the top of the site, the concessions towards the middle, and then a storage area for the performance space at the bottom, which is adjacent to the performance space, which happens behind this wall right here. And we didn't want to create a space with a stage or something that really spoke performance. We wanted to create more open-ended so that if a performance needed to happen there, it could, but it didn't seem empty if it wasn't happening. We really wanted to activate the site in all seasons. So in the summertime and warmer months, we imagine families having picnics, kids, rolling down this large open hill, lemonade being sold at the concessions, and nightly performances happening in front of the wall, with seating happening up on the hill. And as you can see, in the winter months when the site is covered in snow, families can do sledding and snowball fights can happen, and it can really create a fun environment. And that's how we wanted to present the project, with this large image of fun happening on the site. So we intended with the green in between to be a space that allows the families and local communities to come and experience the park in a brand new way. And that a performance doesn't just have to happen in one space, that when people engage the site and play in it, that can be seen as a performance as well.
Next, we have a presentation titled Recording Ephemera, and it also has, is very focused on landscape.
This is a picture.
That's usually Yellowstone. So we really liked the buttress walls when we visited the site, and we wanted people to be able to engage with them. So we thought placing this catwalk within them would allow people to walk up in them, and you can like look down into them and really get close to them. And then you can also, like if your children are playing, you can stand up there and be able to watch them.
And it also allows access to the park from the street. So you don't have to enter at the top.
For the bottom, it meets you in the middle.
I can't tell from the stone wall on my right, but have you removed the new wall that was just put up there? The new brick wall that was put up there is gone? You've removed that?
We didn't articulate it in the rendering, we just put it all as the stone, but we didn't technically remove it.
But you're replacing it with the stone wall?
We're just adding the extra buttressing, so just continuing the...
So is that inside the new brick wall that we have now?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Okay. On the right is where his paper is?
Yes.
Okay. You just had a new brick wall
Right.
brought in
Yeah.
the last, 2 years, whatever it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you replaced that with the stone wall, is what I'm asking? Yes,
So she's
no?
talking about
It's on Snow Hill, right?
Yeah.
on
It's
Snow
on-
Hill Run, so
Yes.
stone comes up to a certain point and then it changes material into brick.
Right, that wasn't something we specifically addressed. I believe that we would want to keep it, it just isn't shown
Okay,
in
the
this
only
image.
reason that I bring it up is that it costs the city megabucks to
Right.
do that.
Understandable.
And I don't work for the city.
Oh, I have a question. I think this is a fascinating concept. When you first said wipe out the flights, I'm thinking, but what's going to hold up Snow Hill Street? But you're essentially replacing the flights with a slope.
Yeah.
What is the slope? And is the slope navigable? Can we walk up that slope
Yes.
without dying halfway up?
You can't see it in this image because of the snow, but there is a path that kind of travels up this side along the bill forms.
Yep, on the top.
Yeah,
Small, sorry about that.
that small image at the top, you can see that path that goes in between that court and that playground and then carries up all the way to the top. You see that?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
it is accessible, so the slope isn't too great that you can't walk up it.
When you're 30. Okay.
22.
Okay, well said. Thank you very much.
Super. In a chapter where the main character sort of questioned the idea of temporal in the context of geography, and that is what sort of resonated with us when we went to the flight, that it's a really nice landscape and we like the profile of what's already there. So our goal for the intervention is to cultivate appreciation for the existing landscape, and also introducing an intricate language that allow us to emphasize the qualities that's already there. At the same time, the intervention branches out to create formal space for gathering and performance. Sectionally, this is section cut across the flight. The existing outline of the flight appealed to us, so we're using that as a framework to develop the design, maintaining the original profile. The strategy is to carve out sort of the spaces below each platform to create an indoor spaces that's situated below each one of them. And the spaces include the rehearsal space here, a community event, an event space there, and also like the restroom, public restroom over there. And up top on the platform, there's two performing stages that sort of facing two different angles. This stage branched out from the middle platform, creating for this sort of audience looking up. And then another stage here, smaller one for casual performance that happening on that platform where the audience can look in on the different, the same elevation.
So the vertical elements that we were mentioning become our recording devices. So they reflect the immediate movement or the immediate changes, so passerby movement, and they also reflect eventual changes, so seasonal changes or weathering that would happen to these elements. So our idea was that you really start to get an appreciation as the seasons change and as people start to move by, so your background's changing all the time. So in the summer you have this very green background, this very full background, but in the winter you might have this very empty, open background that you get to see the sky and maybe the skyline of the city as you pass by. If you go back to the plan, the position of these verticals were derived from the existing hierarchy on the site from the trees that are already there. And so we just wanted to emphasize those verticals. The spatial arrangement allows either an opening or closing of views, depending on the arrangement, how spread apart they are or how close together they are. Also, sectionally, if you go back one, these elements, they start to blur hard edges that these interior spaces start to create. And also, we introduced a fine mist, as you can see up here, that starts to blur hard edges between the stage. So we really wanted to create this ambiguous form of each space that's created. And if you go to the renders, you can see the effect of these. So up here is the stage that we created, and in between you could pass in between these vertical posts. But as you can see, the vertical members start to reflect the background of the site and start to show you the existing qualities of the site that are there.
There's a few more renders, I think. So this is the bigger stage up here for that the bigger audience looking up to the stage. And then this is the rehearsal space that we picture this almost as a cave inside the platform that there's a lot of reflective quality that you can see what people are doing in there.
Any questions for these gentlemen?
I do. So are you, when you're saying reflection, are you talking about mirrors? Mirrors kind of thing, or
It's
lights?
polished aluminum.
Oh, so it's aluminum? Oh.
So that if you, we were talking about this when we first having that sort of aluminum holes going up, it's gonna be clean and you can see the reflection clearly, but over time the scratch gonna mark up and then everything sort of blur, and that's sort of kind of what we want to do.
And that's expected.
Yeah, so this would age with the time that it is.
How cool is that? Wow.
Anybody else? Dave?
What do you envision would be the use of the area between staged performances, or in other words, most of the time?
Well, if you go back to the plan, we envision, are you talking about these spaces right up top and down below?
Yeah, the whole area.
Yeah, so we envision that these areas specifically to be viewing platforms for the audience. This middle section is mostly for performance, and you can actually pass through the stages as performances are happening.
But between performances, between events,
Okay, I see what you're
day
saying now.
by day, it's in the middle of a densely populated neighborhood.
Yeah.
How does the neighborhood use this space between performances?
I can imagine the neighborhood, we have a community space underneath, so there are event spaces underneath that the community can use during the winter and when it gets really cold outside. It can also be a nice place to go and sit and relax and spend your time there. Over here, you can't really see it, but we do have these aluminum verticals that start to bend, and you can actually sit on them and enjoy this nice public space. So right there we have the design for those benches.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Hello, my name is Haley Sear. I'm Kylie's trainer, and our project is called Falling Skies. So the idea behind this was to, instead of have a building just like every other building in the area where it's built from the ground up, we decided that we wanted to have it feel as though it was built from the sky down. And so we also were trying to make a connection between landscape and architecture and how there could be different ways of combining these, whether it's through our design, there was many ways in which we did this. So as you're approaching the site from the two different areas, you get a different sense of how the buildings and the gardens are interacting. So coming from the top of the hill and looking down, you see the gardens that are suspended from the structure above, and you see the tops of all the gardens. But when you're approaching it from the bottom of the hill and looking up, you see the tops of these planters that are hung from the structure, and you see like the bottoms of the planters and just the gardens hanging over them. And we wanted everything to feel as though it was floating above the ground. So, want to talk about that?
Yeah, the one more. Yeah. So actually, the structure that we're talking about, we took and derived from all around the area, looking at different green spaces, and actually taking and drawing lines from each of these green spaces into the site area of the park. And where these lines intersected and crossed, that is where we pinpointed where we would hang these platforms from the structure. And that's where the gardens were placed, like what she's talking about. Looking up, you see the bottoms of the platforms with the overgrown gardens hanging from them. And we really wanted to highlight this because when we first went to the site, we just also went during the winter, but we noticed it was kind of a little bit, dreary, and we wanted to add more of its natural beauty back into it because the North End really is a respected place, historic and beautiful, where a lot of tourists do go, as you know. And so by giving it these gardens, it kind of brings back this natural beauty aspect to it and allows visitors that are walking through the site to really feel this experiential quality rather than just hanging out there. It's more about walking through and experiencing the gardens and then coming to the bottom and where they can hang out. And along the way, there are spaces to break off on these platforms for gathering areas or performing areas.
So as you're walking through this, it feels as though everything is hung from the structure when really the structure underneath that holds it all up. But because the gardens are grown up underneath it, you wouldn't be able to see the structural pieces. So as you're, no, you can go back one. It's okay. As you're walking up these staircases, it opens up into these different platforms that can be used for different events within the community. And there's programmatic spaces that are also look as though they're hung and they have different entrances on each of the different platforms. So we were just really trying to bring the landscape and the architecture together in a different way that's not really seen around the North End right now.
And we really did strive to kind of reflect that natural beauty that we're talking about, the existing landscape and how it is such a high elevation change, and then going from there.
I've seen these, oh, sorry.
You haven't hung the restrooms upside down. Kind of difficult to use.
No, they're at the top, actually.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
It's one way to keep the dogs away from the gardens anyway. But I've seen these gardens and they're really awesome hanging gardens in warmer climates. Do they exist in colder climates like ours?
Well, there's a lot of different, I know obviously there's annual trees, it's the same thing with flowers that grow, but in the winter times, if that's what you're talking about, it would still be kind of a ground covering, and there would be snow there. And also, I think personally, I like looking at snow. I think it's kind of beautiful in its own way.
Yeah, we did some research on gardens and we found different types of ivy that would grow in this way and would still stay green in the wintertime.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ladies.
And that's why.
Hello, everybody. My name's Emily.
And my name's Sarah.
And we did our project and called it the Dynamic Terraces. So for starting off, we thought really practically about it, and we went online and found articles from your community about sort of the things you liked and didn't like about the Gassy and the flight specifically. And we focused on 4 specific words that we really wanted to bring into everything, which was openness, visibility, safety, and to create a more welcoming environment. We found them to be sort of the major things that you wanted, or they were the opposites of the major things that you didn't like. So next one.
So if you look at, we kind of kept with the shape of the flights, but we kept with, we have a direct path right up and down that allows for easy access, straight up. And then we also have outdoor performance spaces and a theater space, which is below ground. It's the dashed line. And that theater space can be opened or closed depending on its use. And this, all the spaces have this great visibility, so wherever you're standing, you can see down into the park. We also have a canteen space with an outdoor seating area and a community garden, which can be used by anyone. We also have bathrooms on each level, so that way anybody can use the bathrooms.
Next one. So starting with the bottom one, it's obviously a cut through the whole site from top to bottom. And you can see we've put the major programmatic elements, the ones that need their own indoor space, underneath each level. So down here is the theater with the seats that can be open and closed when you're using it, when you're not. And then obviously the wall with the flag, which you use for movies, is left uninterrupted. Or if you want to switch it over, the wall on the outside of the theater can be used for movies because the seats are left outside. The next level up is where the canteen is, which can be open and closed for the season. And there's also the seating level where you can bring out tables and chairs so you can enjoy whatever you're eating and look over down towards the park. And then the topmost level has the community garden and more bathrooms.
So this next diagram is another section. It's through our stairs, and all the little red lines show a visibility. So so as you can see right here, there's little seating areas so that you can see your kids playing in the park while relaxing on little seats. This is a little canteen space, so you can see down. So if you're eating lunch, you can still watch your kids in the park, or just have a nice visibility down to the north end, or at the sight line into Boston. This is a nice, more gradual seating area for the performance area right down there. And then there's also visibility going straight up into the hill.
The topmost diagram just shows the basic massing of what the whole project looks like. So it's the same sort of 3 levels that you have now, but with different types of seating, the direct pathway through, and everything's really open. Nothing's blocked from view by tall fences or big walls. So next one.
Sure. So this bottom render shows the theater space. As you can see there, anything can happen right now. In there, there's a ballet happening right now. So it just shows some people sitting down and watching the show, and you can see up above there's the canteen space with some people sitting.
So the theater space offers dressing rooms and storage areas, so everything can be locked up when needed, and 2 sets of bathrooms. Also, it gives you a little view into all the grass that we put in, because there is a lack of green space and a lack of big grassy areas for kids to play. The top render is the whole thing put together, so you really get a sense of all the green that we've put in and how like all the spaces interact with each other. And then the really direct connection, we really wanted to open it up because we thought even in the winter, like when there's no leaves and trees, it's really hard to see from the bottom to the top. and it's pretty sort of back and forth to try to get up there too. So we wanted to really open that up and give you a direct path so you can see everything and you can walk right through and enjoy everything. That's pretty much it.
Any questions? Any questions? Okay, thanks.
All right. The next project is Unhinged.
So my name's Neil. I'm Matt. And with this competition, we were given a really unique opportunity to start to engage the North End community with a design proposal, specifically at Copp's Hill, like you've seen a few times. And one thing that we both noticed as soon as we got to Copp's Hill was the fact that even though the North End is so exciting, thriving, lively, the parks, the flights specifically, they're very underdeveloped, underused, almost a missed opportunity in our minds. And our kind of goal for this entire project was to give it back to the community through the aspects of performative elements, openness, as well as safety was a big concern for us. And we actually titled our project Unhinged. We'll get to that in just a second. Okay, please. I mean, these are the two full boards, which we'll obviously get into more detail. You can see kind of like, this is looking down from Hull Street all across the entire site, and then up from Prince Street. But we'll bring those back in just a second once we explain what kind of ideas were.
So the first thing that we noticed with the site of it really being this closed-off area is what we call it as the barred site, where the flights, they kind of block everything that's happening all the way through. Access, circulation through, as well as view. So one of the things that we wanted to do is really open this up in the way that we gave back to the community was looking at it with the fences and these stone and brick walls there. How can we begin to open this? So we said to ourselves, what if these act as a hinging point and they actually swing out and open up, just as if a door would open that you walk right through. So it was by taking these the walls and actually swinging them open based off of data. When we swung those open, it began to derive a plan, a form that could be generated from it. And then basically connecting those 3 different walls through a sequence of circulation that would get you from Hull Street down to Prince Street and allow access all the way through the site.
So you can kind of see where that led us, that sequential idea of moving from one place to the next. Once we had those datum lines set up by this barred site opening up to the community, we were able to do really simple, straightforward gestures that would give us not only our circulation paths, as you can see through the ramping system up, which is definitely accessible, and also the performance space. As you can see, when we pushed down, we were able to create an outdoor performance space, which you'll see, and then an indoor performance space where most of the events would take place.
So this diagram here explains the different uses that were put on the site. So you can see down below that axon view is the whole site with the intervention that's placed into it. The blue part that's right above it is the circulation path that exists. So you have a ramp that comes all the way up through that is accessible, leading up into a small terrace space that overlooks the outdoor performance space, and then a staircase that runs up alongside the indoor performance space. And then one of the interesting parts of our project was, we wanted to find a way. We found that the wall over the right-hand side was something that you could inhabit those spaces in between. It was a very private area, and how was a way that we could begin to still keep this a private area, but make something that was occupiable. So with that, we perforated each one of the parts of the wall and actually created a circulation path that came up alongside of it to allow more circulation from Prince Street up towards the indoor performance space. The green spaces that are in the diagram up towards the top, those are the green spaces that include green space on the roof that's occupiable, the outdoor performance space, and then an open green space that acts as a hill that where you can sit and occupy. You can be able to bring your whole family to and kind of just enjoy this park atmosphere along with the performances that are happening, both indoor and outdoor. And then the inside of the performance space occupies the bathroom pavilion as well as the performance space, which has an opening glass facade that allows for it to be opened up during the summertime to really allow kind of the weather and to kind of blur the boundaries between indoor and outdoor space.
So just sections basically through the very middle of our site, looking in both directions, just to give you an idea of how we kind of leveled the site off, made it accessible, and got people to come through this buttressed wall system, and then just a view up there of how this the indoor performance space, once you got onto the roof, you'd be able to have views over into the city, which you'll see on the next slide. This would be from Hull Street in the very beginning of our proposal. Looking down this hill here, you can see on the right people inhabiting the roof of the performance space, all being able to look down, creating a really open atmosphere, while also being able to look up, seeing the city in the background, the North End community right at the lower level there, and how you can really see all the way through the buttress system down these stairs. We wanted to create a really, really open, a really more safe atmosphere for people to be able to bring their kids beyond this hill and really do whatever you need to do, kind of get the excitement of the North End community into one location.
With this render, we thought it was really important, again, going back to the safety of looking at, through our research, it's kind of become like a little bit of a crime-ridden area, something that's been hijacked from the community. And a way for us to give it back was giving it a nightlight. And the way that we did that is, that indoor performance space can kind of become this like going part that really allows in some lighting that happens inside the site along with the circulation path, really lights it up, but kind of keeps it contained inside of the walls of the perimeter of the site because of the elevation change. Really kind of giving the site itself light, but really allowing to be a safe access point for the community and fully giving it back to you guys. You guys take so much care of the community, and really that's what it was all about, was giving it back to the community and the North End.
What's that? Thank you.
Are you confident that after hollowing out the buttresses, the wall won't collapse, or is that for the engineering consultant to
we believe that it would still retain, the wall would still be built up along the side of it, so there would still be that structure there. So really it was just putting perforations for access through, so like a doorway through each one of them, so it wouldn't be removing them totally.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully inspire the neighborhood with some ideas.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
1 minute left.
No attempts to price it, you can set it.
That's part of the job, they have to fundraise too.
Well, gosh, maybe that's the next step. Maybe there's enough inspiration and room and interest.
Everybody's got a big buck
Really making this a place for people, right? Beautiful park. Maybe we can fundraise.